I call the Honourable Minister, Paula Bennett.
Mr Chairman, I just wanted to speak to a couple of things that have come up in the debate so far and just to see where we are. In response to Mr Prasad, I just want to say that actually there is an exemption for high needs children. No, it doesn't answer all of his question, but there actually is. And there's an absolute exemption there that does acknowledge for some of those that are over 14 that are at home and need a parent there that they can get that. In response to Holly Walker as well, and particularly around the sort of just get your SOP, so I'm giving the wording correctly for where she is, where she says the Chief Executive is satisfied the recovery of the sum may deprive the child of food or shelter or would otherwise be detrimental to the well-being of the child. The actual problem we have with that is actually a case manager cannot make that judgment, either sitting at the desk with the person in front of them or many times without them in front of them. So they can't make that kind of call. So they will eschew to not doing it. And that is the truth of it. So when you look at, so you're quite right when you said they are likely to fall on the part of, but it's not because they are necessarily concerned about that deprivation. They just cannot make that judgment based on the information that they have. So as a consequence, they won't. I can go through the financial if you like, but to be fair, the sanctions, the estimate that they have is that it would cost between $200 and $300 million over 4 years if they do not impose those sanctions. And as I say, the practical effect of this change would be to largely prevent work and income from applying sanctions and undertaking debt recovery for anyone with dependent children. Mr Chairman, I also wanted to go into other parts of this part which are relatively substantial, and we've been making our way through them, I think, very well, and that's certainly around subsequent children while on benefit, which is a topic all in itself, as we know. So to give some of the facts around subsequent children on benefit, data shows that 28% of those receiving the DBB had additional newborn children in their benefits. Mr Chairman, actually 5% had 2 subsequent children, 2% had 3, and actually 5 had 4 or more children while on the DPB. As at November 2011, 26,000 women receiving DBB had included an additional newborn child in their benefit at least once since 1993. So looking at that, and when we sort of say there's not a problem, the reality is, and I don't have this one right in front of me, but from what I was seeing as well as that transfer there was about 5,000 births while for those that are on DBB as well in recent months. So the effect that we have here, and the reason is that actually I'm sure like many members of this House we're quite concerned about particularly those mothers and their children. I don't think anyone sits here and thinks that it is a life of luxury on the DPB and that they are doing incredibly well. So I don't think that is actually the premise, and it's certainly not where I'm coming from as Minister when I look at this. But the reality is if they keep having children on benefit and if they stay there, then the longer they are likely to be there and actually be living in that kind of hardship and for as tough as it can be. So the best thing we can actually do for them is actually see them actually getting ahead in life and having other options other than just welfare. Mr Chairman, a big part of this is making sure that there is childcare available, and there is a significant amount of money, in fact around $80 million, that is going into making sure that there's that additional childcare for those mothers and certainly for those teen parents as well, which I think is going to make a significant difference in making sure that we have the support around them. I want to talk about that work expectation stuff too and the getting work ready and I suppose I have this kind of vision that when it's gone through for a while, because the reality is it's going to take a lot of time for it all to go through, but as you see someone that when their youngest is 3 or 4 years old and they are in 20 hours free childcare if you like, then they're able to get that training, they'll be able to get that upskilling so that when they are actually 5 years old they can go into that job and they've got a skill that they can give and that is worthwhile and that is actually giving them time to get ready. So Mr Chairman, there is substantial changes in this part of the of the bill, but ones that we think give that balance back to work testing. There is also the changes for widows and women alone. That certainly was not made lightly, but when you looked at a modern welfare system, and quite frankly, as Arctic as some of this is, when I looked at how Arctic I think that this system can be, there was a call that actually widows and women alone be changed and be brought into the new benefit categories.
I call the Honourable Member Jan Logie.
Mr Chair, thank you for